Hi, I'm Neil Beck, and I was a doctor in Perth, Western Australia for 53 years. A family doctor most of the time, but for 5 years had my own drug and alcohol addiction clinic and did a few other things as well. In the early days, because we hadn't had a medical school in Perth until 1959, family doctors did lots of things that they don't do today. So in the early days, I helped 800 babies into the world. I looked after a lot of tummy and chest and head problems that now would be looked after by specialists, and I did many appendicectomies and tonsillectomies and vasectomies, which are now done by specialists. When I concentrated on my family medicine practice, altogether I had 500,000 consultations, home and hospital visits, and I think saw almost everything, not everything, but almost everything, and got involved in almost everything. And what I discovered was the 7 most important things in people's lives were, first of all, mental health. If you've got mental health in a developed country, you're going to get everything else you need, because there's plenty of almost everything. But if you don't have mental health, you may go without some things that you very badly need. So mental health is so important. The second most important thing is good relationships. Good relationships are so important, and good relationships make you mentally healthier, and mental health makes your relationships better. The third important thing was to have high endorphins chemistry. Our brain and glands produce over 20 chemicals which are called endorphins, and that stands for endogenous morphines. And the endogenous morphines, relieve pain and distress, and they also manage our immune system. And our immune system is the fourth most important thing. Our immune system is cells and antibodies and chemicals in every part of us that fight infections, allergies, inflammation, autoimmune diseases and cancers. So very important. Because the fifth most important thing is physical health, for which the immune system is very important. And the sixth most important thing is a good home. We should all think, starting in our teens, about the goal of having a good home. A good home makes so much difference. Homelessness is so horrible, or insecure home is so horrible. And the seventh important thing is good employment. Now, I didn't mention marriage and family there, because that comes under good relationships. And what I found was that there are no perfect mothers or perfect fathers or perfect families or perfect homes or perfect streets or perfect communities or perfect schools. So every child has some suffering and suffers some harm to their mental health. And what I then discovered was that many people with mental health problems got no help, that very few people got enough mental health help, and that was because there was a great shortage of mental health carers um, for because the tools that mental health carers use were weak. There were two main tools. The first main tool is medicines, and medicines have two great weaknesses. The people who take medicine want to take medicine, get better, and stop taking the medicine. But the people who make medicine want them to stay on as much medicine as possible for as long as possible, so they achieve that in two ways. Firstly, they make as many medicines addictive as they can get away with. So nearly all the anxiety, worry medicines are addictive. Originally the barbiturates and then Valium, Seropax, Xanax, and then Ambien and Stilnox, all addictive. So the medicines for anxiety and worry, which is the commonest mental health problem, and the medicines for sleep, nearly all addictive. And the three main medicines for ADD addictive. The three main medicines for ADD are dexamphetamine, Ritalin, and Adderall, and they're all addictive, and that causes terrible problems. It causes terrible problems because they're addictive. The authorities in most countries may have a regulation that only pediatricians and psychiatrists can initiate those stimulant addictive ADD treatments, and pediatricians and psychiatrists are costly, and they're usually not local, they're in the top end of town. But most people with ADD are in families that have lowish education and not so good employment, sometimes unemployment, so they're not very financial, and in the poorer end of town it's much easier to get relief from a drug dealer than it is to get relief from a pediatrician or a psychiatrist. So many ADD people become addicts. One year I treated 700 heroin addicts, and a third of them, around 230 of them, had ADD, ADHD, which was not being treated, mostly hadn't been diagnosed, and that's a disaster. Having ADD, ADHD is a big handicap, but having ADD, ADHD and being a heroin addict is terrible, because the regulators made it illegal, in Australia anyway, made it illegal for even pediatricians or psychiatrists to prescribe the addictive medicines for ADD for addicts. So once a person with ADD became an addict, they couldn't get treated, even if they could afford, which they usually couldn't afford, a psychiatrist or a pediatrician. So that's a disaster. The second weakness with medicines is that so many of them are too slow. Most medicines are tablets or capsules which you swallow. You need a drink to swallow them, and they take half an hour to an hour to go right down your gut and start to be absorbed into your bloodstream, and between 1 and 2 hours before they're working strongly. So you can't take them just when you need them. You have to take them in case you need them 2 or 3 times a day, which is much more business for the pharmaceutical manufacturers, but costly and a drag for people with mental health problems. The other main tool for mental health and addiction is talk therapy, counseling, psychotherapy, CBT, call it what you like, but basically talking. And talking has got two very big problems. One is it's slow. When you see a new patient with mental health problems and addiction, you need an hour, and there just aren't enough hours in the day. So talk therapy is slow, and often in talk therapy only the biggest one or two problems are found, but people always have smaller problems as well, and to get completely better they have to have all their problems found and fixed, and that's hard to do with talk therapy. And the second weakness of talk therapy is it's too costly. It has to be costly because to be a therapist you need at least a 4-year Bachelor of Psychology, preferably a 5-year Masters of Psychology or a PhD, and to be a psychiatrist takes 10 or 12 years. So people who are qualified to be therapists are very intelligent people who've spent a lot of years training, and they have to be paid well, and because they have to be paid well and talk therapy is slow, it's very expensive, and a lot of the people with mental health problems and addictions are from the poor end of town and just cannot afford them. So they have to go to free government clinics, and the free government clinics have got very long waiting lists, and on the long waiting lists people with mental health and addiction problems just get worse, and problems cause problems which cause more problems. You start with ADD, you get a poor education, you're a problem in the classroom, you cop a lot of flack, you leave school early with a poor education, you have difficulties with employment or unemployment, and you get often not very well paid. So problems lead to problems. So almost everyone, because there are no perfect families or homes, has some suffering and some harm in their childhood. They need to get that fixed as soon as possible, because problems cause more problems cause more problems. So you want to fix it as soon as possible, but there are long waiting lists, and people often don't get any help until they've crashed, and that's partly because of the shortage of mental health care, and partly because the stigma associated with mental health disorders, and people don't like to admit that they've got mental health problems until they've crashed, and it's bad. So problems. Then I found that another cause of the lack of mental health care and the poor results was that there are 10 blind areas in mental health. 10 areas where it appeared to me the therapists had a blind spot, and the community and our society had a blind spot. The first one was that mental health is not taught in school. The most important things in your life is mental health, and it's not taught in school. Every child should learn about mental health and good relationships and endorphins and the immune system in school, and they don't learn it. It's not taught. Secondly, mental health and addiction problems are nearly always family problems, and this was a blind area because we tended to treat people as individuals when really their problem was a family problem, and the whole family needed to be have help, and usually we just helped the person as if they were on their own, which they are not. And the third blind area was we didn't seem to look for causes. To fix things, you need to know causes. If you manage to help someone to overcome their anxiety or their heroin or cocaine addiction, but they've still got the original cause, they're going to relapse. So not finding and fixing the causes makes it much harder for people to get better, and makes it much more likely that they will relapse. The fourth blind area was that mental health and addiction problems were not treated as emergencies, but they are emergencies. The earlier you get to them, the simpler and easier they are, the more obvious the causes are, and it's much simpler, easier to help the people get better if you get in early by treating mental health and addiction problems as emergencies, but they're usually not treated as emergencies. A fifth blind area is that 60 to 65% of our life is habits. Habits. Our brain is so busy that it can't do everything by conscious effort. And what it does is it turns anything that we repeat often into an unconscious automatic habit. And that's about 2/3 of our life, including sleep, which is 1/3 of our life, which is a habit. But so much of our life is habits. And because the world changes and our life changes and our circumstances change, we need to be able to make new habits and to break old habits. But mental health didn't seem to teach people about habits, how important habits were, and how to make them and how to break them. The sixth blind area was transgenerational traumas. Often people had problems that the causes were not very obvious, but that was because the cause was something that happened to their parent, their mother or their father many years ago, or to their grandparent, or to a great-grandparent 10 or 20 or 50 or 100 years ago, which had caused mental health and social changes and habits that caused mental health problems. In my family, the greatest problems arose from a great-grandmother who at the age of 16 started to have babies and had 9 babies with 3 different husbands, and then died of cancer when she was 42, leaving her 5th child, her oldest daughter, to do a lot of child minding, as well as minding her dying mother when that oldest daughter was in her mid-teens, and that affected the family. So if you have problems and it's not very obvious why you've got those problems, you need to find out if anything really bad happened to either of your parents or their parents or their grandparents, which are your great-grandparents, that has affected the family in different ways. Not everyone, but just some of the people. Transgenerational trauma. Another blind area, I think, is that we were too obsessed with giving people a diagnosis when we should have been obsessed with telling them what they needed and wanted to have that they didn't have. So it's important to know that you've got ADD, ADHD, or that you've got bipolar disorder, or you've got post-traumatic stress disorder. But what you really need to know is, if you've got ADD, you need to know that you have to learn to focus and concentrate better, and to be less instant decision making bad decisions because you're impulsive. The emphasis in mental health should be finding what people need to be healthier and happier, and help them to get that. Another blind area is that people were not being taught to do self-help. If there's never going to be enough helpers for all the people who need help, then they have to learn to do self-help. But we treated them as we just told them what to do, and didn't teach them how to help themselves. So self-help is so important, and that was a blind area. And blame was a blind area. We were too focused on who was to blame. Oh, there's a problem here, who's to blame? And as if one person caused the problem. But mental health problems are nearly always one link in a chain of problems and a chain of people, and almost never is a problem caused by one person. One person caused a problem because somebody had caused them a problem, and somebody had caused them a problem. Problems come in chains, and people come in chains, and picking on someone to blame is a blind area. And a final, rather subtle blind area is unhelpful family loyalty. Unhelpful family loyalty. People from troubled families often subconsciously feel they need to stay troubled because that's their family. Their family's a troubled family, so they should be troubled. But all of us should be healthy and happy as possible. So don't stay troubled because your family is troubled. Get better, and everything that you find that helps you to get better, pass it on to your family members so you all get better together. Getting better together is much easier and quicker than trying to get better while the rest of your family remains troubled. So what was the solution to all this? What I concluded in the end was that we have to have better mental health and addiction tools. Today, everything we do with tools. When I was a boy a long time ago, there were only two tools in the kitchen. There was a big tin dish that we washed our cups and plates and knives and forks in, and a wood stove that we lit in the morning and had to keep putting wood on to boil the billy and cook the food. But today there's refrigerators, there's gas, there's electricity, there's dishwashers, there's electric knives, there's grinders, all sorts of tools in the kitchen and in the garden and in the garage and in factories. In factories, incredible tools. We just don't think of doing things without having very good tools. If something needs to be done and there's not a good tool for it, someone develops a good tool. Except in mental health, there's only two tools and they're both weak. Both got great weaknesses. So 22 years ago, I started to create mental health and addiction tools. We were having a big epidemic of heroin in Perth, terrible epidemic of heroin in Perth in the late 1990s. Because Perth is one of the most remote cities in the world, we got some of these forms of addiction later than they got in London or New York or places like that, but eventually we got a big epidemic of heroin. And I wanted, young people were telling me they were the last person standing in their group of friends, that all their other friends had dropped dead from heroin overdoses. So I wanted to find out about heroin. I started to work in a heroin clinic 10 hours a week. And I wanted to know what caused heroin addiction. You always want to know what causes a health problem, because if you know what causes it, it's much easier to help people get better. And if you fix the cause as well as fixing the problem, then they're not going to relapse. But if you fix the problem without fixing a cause and they've still got the cause, they're probably going to relapse. So I asked, I went to all the addiction clinics in Perth and Sydney and couldn't find a single worker who could tell me what caused addiction. Oh, they're just dickheads chasing highs. But they looked sick to me. And one day in the clinic where I was doing 10 hours a week, I saw 15 heroin addicts, and 5 of them had ADD, ADHD. And there was a general sentiment that addictions cause mental health problems. Well, they don't make your mental health better, and they can cause new mental health problems, but really what happens is that mental health leads to addictions. If someone is suffering badly from mental health and they're in a lower socioeconomic group, in a poor area, and they have difficulty getting mental health care, then their local heroin dealer or drug dealer is more user-friendly than the addiction clinic. So they get relief at first at a very low cost. Sometimes the dealers even give them the first doses to try, and they get such wonderful relief that they take more and more and more, and soon they're addicts. Because how do addictive substances work? Addictive substances work by, first of all, giving people great relief from a problem. The problem may be pain, but usually it's a mental health condition of some sort. Worry, anxiety, severe insomnia, bipolar disorder, major depression, ADD, ADHD, post-traumatic. It's usually a mental health problem. And the street drug gives them great relief. A small amount that costs very little gives them great relief. But addictive substances never cure anything. So the problem comes back the next day. But not only does the problem come back the next day, but every time you take an addictive substance, you develop a little bit of resistance or tolerance to it. So the next time you have to take a bit more to get the same relief and to overcome the tolerance or the resistance. And when you take a bit more, then the tolerance or grows, and you have to take even more. So to continue getting relief from whatever the distress is, you need to take more of the addictive substance to overcome the problem and to overcome the resistance, until eventually you're taking a lot of the addictive substance and it's costing you so much money, and you can't stop, because if you stop you have terrible withdrawal problems. So that's how addictive substances work. So what I then realized was that to truly treat an addict, we had to find and treat the underlying mental health cause as well as the addiction. To truly treat an addiction, we had to treat the underlying causative mental health problem, and in 95% of cases, 19 out of 20, it was a mental health problem, as well as treating their addiction. And that's called dual diagnosis. Dual diagnosis is diagnosing and treating the mental health problem at the same time as treating the addiction. And so that's what I did. And as a family doctor, I knew a bit about mental health because there was such a shortage of mental health workers that family doctors, although they're not properly trained to treat mental health, have to treat mental health every day. In fact, recently I read that 38% of general practitioner consultations now are about mental health. So I quickly got swamped with work because the word spread that at my clinic, I had to start my own clinic because the clinic where I was working 10 hours a week, they weren't interested in causes. When I told them that a third of the heroin addicts had ADD, they said, oh yeah, but they didn't want to really know about that. And they didn't want to know about depression and bipolar disorder and all those other things. So I started my own clinic so I could do dual diagnosis treatment. And why was I swamped with work? I was swamped with work because addicts couldn't get mental health treatment. First of all, they didn't have enough money to see a private psychiatrist or a private psychologist or a therapist. And secondly, the free government mental health clinics refused to see addicts. If you're an addict, you can get a mental health appointment at a mental health clinic. So, lots of family doctors didn't want to treat these people because they're a problem in the waiting room, and they were a problem. As the word spread that they could get dual diagnosis at my clinic got very, very busy. So my first tool was a checklist. I just didn't have an hour to spend with every new addiction patient, but I made a 20-question checklist which one of my assistants would do with a new addiction patient, and that meant that in 10 or 15 minutes with the checklist report, I could do as much as it took me half an hour, 3/4 of an hour to do if I saw the patient right from the beginning. But and the second tool was videos, because there's no faster, better, more convenient, lower cost way for people to understand their problems than to watch videos on their problems. And they can watch the video over and over again. When the doctor explains the problem and is in a hurry, they often don't quite get the message and they walk out the door confused, and it's a week or a fortnight or a month before they can come back and talk to him about it. But with a video, if you want to watch it 3 times or 5 times, you can watch it 3 times or 5 times. You can watch it as often as you need to until you get the message. So the first tool was checklists, the second tool was videos, the third tool was websites, because the whole internet thing was coming in, and so I had a number of websites. The second last main one was mental health videos A-to-Z.com, on which I had 31 mental health videos. But the first video about 15 years ago was about 10 minutes. It had 10,000 views in about 9 months, which was very good, which is why I made more videos. But they gradually stopped watching 10-minute videos, and then I discovered that they were all watching 1 minute or under a minute TikTok videos. So now I've got 83 under a minute videos, which a lot of people watch. So that was the third tool. But then we had to replace the checklist tool. The checklist was too cumbersome, and we replaced it with the Mental Fix-It app, because apps had come in, and apps were much more convenient. People could do the app on their phone at home, and most addicts didn't have a diary, but they had a phone. So the Mental Fix-It app asked 38 questions, which you could do. You just tap no, yes, moderate, mild, or severe, and in 10 minutes you could answer the 38 questions. But that was too long, so we had to reduce that to 19 questions in 5 minutes. And now we've reduced the Android Mental Fix-It app to 2 minutes, and we'll soon get to reducing the iPhone Mental Fix-It app to 2 minutes, which is what people want. Everybody's in such a hurry. And the fourth tool was live streaming, which is what I'm doing now, because what I discovered is not only did people want to watch under a minute videos, they love watching live streaming. And to really reach a lot of people, I had to do live streaming. So now I do this live streaming on Wednesday, Friday and Saturday evening at 7 p.m. Perth time and 9 a.m. Sunday Perth time. Sorry I missed last Wednesday, but I had to go to a lecture. I didn't have to go, but I wanted to go to an important lecture which will help me with my work. And then I had to make a shorter website, and my shorter website is called smilefixit.com. smilefixit.com. So the mental health videos A-to-Z.com is still there, but smilefixit.com is only 1 or 2 pages, and you can tap links to whatever is of interest to you. So under a minute videos, websites, the Mental Fix-It app, live streaming, and the next thing was powder medicines. Why powder medicines? Because with mental health and addiction, you want fast help. You know, a medicine that takes half an hour to start to work and 1 to 2 hours to work strongly is too slow for many situations. But if you drop powder medicine on your tongue and suck it, don't swallow it, and absorb it through your tongue, it starts to work in 5 minutes. And that's much, much better if you're trying to avoid smoking or trying to avoid drinking too much alcohol or trying to avoid shots of heroin. If you can take a medicine that starts to work in 5 minutes and is working strongly in 10 to 15 minutes, that's much more helpful. And it's even better than that because your body soon connects the taste of the medicine with getting better. And then as soon as you taste the medicine, as soon as you drop the powder medicine on your tongue and taste it with the taste buds at the back of your tongue, it starts to work. And it's working strongly in 5 to 10 minutes. So that gives you much better relief. And the next tool was pocket powder medicine dispensers. I designed and had 1,000 of these dispensers made, so you have the powder medicine that you need for your particular mental health issue or your mental health issue and your addiction in your pocket, and anytime, anywhere, you just whiz it out and drop some powder on your tongue, and it starts to work first of all in 5 minutes and soon in seconds, and that's a wonderful help. And it's even better than that because you can combine 2 or 3 or 4 powder medicines in one, so that when you drop that powder on your tongue, it relieves 2 or 3 or 4 problems, 2 or 3 or 4 mental health problems and an addiction problem. The seventh tool is a heartbeat meditation aid, which is just a short doctor's stethoscope. Meditation is so valuable for people with mental health and addiction problems. In meditation, you focus on your breathing or a word and stop thinking about all your stresses and worries and have a rest and calm down and feel better and get stronger. Except that when your mental health worries are very strong, it's hard to stop thinking about them. You need a really strong attention-grabbing diversion, and focusing on your breathing or focusing on a word is not a strong enough diversion. But I've been listening to people's heartbeats for 50 or 60 years and listening to the heart with a stethoscope. It's loud and strong and interesting. So a few years ago I cut doctors' stethoscopes, cheap doctors' stethoscopes short, and now you can plug them in, and that's the listening part. You can listen to your heart beating loud and clear, and that's much easier to focus on to allow you to forget for a while all your worries and stresses and strains. The eighth tool is another pocket powder dispenser, but it's a bigger dispenser than the medicine dispensers because it dispenses fruit powder. So why do you want to have a fruit powder dispenser in your pocket? Two general reasons. Firstly, you can stop putting harmful stuff in your mouth if you can at any time whiz this fruit powder dispenser out and drop some lovely fruit powder on your tongue and enjoy the taste. If you're trying not to put a cigarette in your mouth, or not to drink stuff that you should, or not to have sugary drinks, cakes, biscuits, lollies, chocolate, because of the epidemic of obesity and diabetes, then being able to have the pleasure of a lovely harmless fruit powder taste is good. And the second thing about fruit powder taste is you can use it to make and break habits. If you want to make a new habit, like exercise or playing the piano or learning a language or focusing on your mathematics or whatever, and you find that a bit difficult, but every time you do it you have a lovely taste, and you keep on having lovely tastes, then it's much easier to do it. And the easier it is to do it, the more you do it, the quicker it becomes a habit, and then it's no problem. So lovely tastes can increase the frequency of doing a new activity and turning it into a habit. And lovely tastes can be used to break bad habits. How do you break a bad habit? Well, habits are based on the underlying triggers and electrical messages in your brain and nerves, and chemical messages in your brain and tissues and blood. And those messages are strong because you've done things so often that they become strong and it's become a habit. What you have to do is to weaken those triggers and messages, and you weaken triggers and messages by delaying them and doing less of them. So if you get an urge to have a cigarette, instead of that you drop some lovely, my favourites, vanilla and chocolate on your tongue, and enjoy the taste. And when the taste starts to fade, you have another taste and then another taste, because the fruit powders only cost a few cents for each taste, not $5 for a cake of chocolate. And that allows you to delay the habit that you're trying to weaken and break. And when you make it a bit weaker, then you can delay it even longer, and then you can it weakens even more, and you delay, do less until you break the habit. So what's my ninth tool? My ninth tool, I stopped without doing it because my 10th tool was so fascinating. My ninth tool I call Phone Treasure, and what I wanted to do was to put lovely stuff in a program on your phone, because we've all got our phones in our pockets, and if we can just whiz our phone out and look at something lovely or listen to something that we're really interested in, that acts a bit like the lovely tasting fruit powder. It helps you to do things or to not do things. So Phone Treasure, we'll come back to that later. The 10th tool I call Scroll Plus. And what's Scroll Plus? Well, what I found was that not only did people want under-a-minute videos, and did they like live streaming, they loved scrolling. TikTok, which only started in 2016, has over 1 billion monthly visits, because people love scrolling on TikTok. So what I realized is that I had to put all my mental health information into a scrollable form. There are about 90 items in mental health, 90 wants, needs and solutions, and I've now got them in scrollable form, and you can scroll through those 90 titles in 5 minutes. But the reason why scrolling is so fast is there's no detail. But of course you want detail. But when I was a medical student, my medical textbook had 1,200 pages. The surgery textbook had 1,000 pages. And there's so much information, so much detail, and people are in such a hurry today that long books and long videos and long podcasts not acceptable for many people, but scrolling is what they want. So what you can do now, sorry you can't do it now, but it's going up in the next week or two under smilefixit.com, on the smilefixit.com website, Scroll Plus, and you'll be able to scroll through as many of those 90 items as you want, and do them all in about 5 or 6 minutes. And every time you come to something that's interesting to you, say you come to anxiety and you're anxious, well, you can immediately tap on a 6 to 16 second video and get some information about that. Or you come to another thing, you come to cocaine and you're interested in cocaine, you can tap on that and get an instant, a very short video on cocaine. So out of the 90 things, there might be 6 or 8 or 10 that are of interest to you, and you can watch those very short videos very quickly. And whenever you feel you've done enough, because you're in a hurry like everyone else, you just tap the enough button. When you tap the enough button, the program gives you the links to all the videos that you've chosen to watch, which are the things that are important to you. And each of those very short 6 to 16 second videos has a link to a 1 minute video which gives you more detail. And so you can both have the benefit of very fast scrolling so that you find everything. You don't have to do like me and not discover transgenerational trauma until you're in your 80s. You discover transgenerational trauma in 5 minutes on the Scroll Plus. But then if transgenerational trauma is of interest to you, you can immediately tap on a 16 second video and get some information about it. And if that information is helpful, when you press the enough button, you see all the video links that you've just watched, and you tap the one that you're most interested in, and you get its link to a 1 minute video which gives you more information. And then if you want, you can go from there to the 2 minute Mental Fix-It app and do the 2 minute Mental Fix-It app, which gives you the 6 of our 83 videos that will help your particular mixture of problems most. So thank you for watching. I need to stop now, but lots of people want to talk, but I can't talk to everyone. There's usually nearly around 1,000 viewers, and there have been as many as 8,700 viewers. But I am very interested in your comments, questions and criticisms. Now this live streaming is on TikTok, on YouTube Shorts, on Facebook and Instagram. Whichever of those platforms you watch it on, you can send me a message, and I will try to answer it. Send me your comments, questions and criticisms. Or you can email me. The email address, which is spelt how it sounds, is healthestuff@gmail.com. healthestuff@gmail.com. And if you can't remember that, just go to smilefixes.com and find the email address there, and I always respond to emails. Okay, well, Friday, so tomorrow I'll be back again. Tomorrow, Saturday, I'll be back again at 7 p.m. and on Sunday morning at 9 a.m. Perth time.